You've probably spent a few evenings scrolling through endless speaker reviews, trying to figure out whether a floor-standing pair is really worth the price tag for the room you have. You don't want to drop a couple of $100s on a set that sounds great on paper but ends up sounding flat in your living room, or that needs a whole extra subwoofer you didn't plan on buying. And if you're like most people, you want to know quickly if this ELAC debut reference bundle actually delivers the kind of soundstage and punch you're hoping for before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of space this bundle is built for. The DFR52BK floor-standing speakers are fairly tall, so they need a bit of breathing room. About a foot of space on each side is ideal. In a medium-sized living room, say 12 by 15 feet, placed on a sturdy stand or directly on the floor with a solid rug, they can really fill the room without overwhelming it. The included DBR62BK bookshelf pair gives you the flexibility to create a surround or a front center channel, which is useful if you're setting up a 5.1 system for movies. The DCR52BK is the center speaker, designed to blend with the fronts, and the PS250BK subwoofer adds that low-frequency oomph you'll notice when watching action scenes or listening to bass-heavy music. If you've been using a pair of bookshelf speakers on a bookshelf for a few years, you might wonder whether the step up to floor standing actually translates into a noticeable improvement. In practice, the biggest change is the way the tweeter with its Waveguide handles high frequencies. Because the tweeter sits higher and is paired with a larger cone for mids, you get a smoother transition from the highs to the mids, which reduces that tinny quality some smaller speakers can produce. In a typical listening session, say, a Saturday night movie marathon, that translates into dialogue that stays clear even when the background score is booming, and a more natural ambience when you're listening to orchestral recordings. One of the hidden trade-offs that shows up in real-world use is the need for proper placement to get the best bass response from the PS250BK. The subwoofer's app control is handy because it lets you adjust the crossover and phase on the fly, but you still have to find the sweet spot in your room. Many owners report that moving the sub just a foot or two can change the perceived depth dramatically. The 250-watt rating means the sub can keep up with the floor standers even at higher volumes, but if your room has a lot of hard surfaces, you might notice some boominess unless you add a rug or a few acoustic panels. Who should consider buying this bundle? If you're a movie enthusiast who wants an immersive home theater without splurging on a full-blown high-end system, the debut reference set gives you the essential front 3 speakers plus a sub, all of which are calibrated to work together. It also works well for music lovers who gravitate toward rock, jazz, or classic pop genres that benefit from a tight mid-range and a punchy low end without needing the ultra-refined detail of a high-price audiophile set. The fact that the tweeter is a soft dome with a waveguide helps keep the highs smooth, which is a nice surprise for vocal-centric tracks. On the other hand, if you're a critical audiophile who expects absolute neutrality across every frequency or you have a very large listening room, think 20+ feet across, you might find the debut reference a bit on the forward side. The sound signature leans slightly warm, which many listeners enjoy for movies, but it can mask some of the subtle nuances in high-resolution classical recordings. Also, if you're limited on floor space, the size of the DFR52BK could be a deal-breaker. You'd need to sacrifice some room for the speakers to sit properly. A practical strength that often gets overlooked is the build quality of the cabinet. The custom design isn't just about looks. The internal bracing reduces resonances that would otherwise color the sound. In my own test setup, the speakers maintained a consistent tonal balance whether I turned them on at 60% volume for a background playlist or cranked them up for an action-packed scene. The Subs app also includes a room calibration feature that runs a quick sweep and suggests a crossover point, which saves you from having to tinker with an external processor. A practical weakness you'll need to plan around is the power requirement. The subwoofer draws a decent amount of power, so you'll want a reliable surge protector or a dedicated outlet. I've seen a few owners mention that the sub's power cable is a bit stiff, making it a little tricky to route neatly behind furniture. It's a minor inconvenience, but worth noting if you're aiming for a clean, low-profile setup. Another thing to keep in mind is that the debut reference line doesn't come with a built-in amplifier. You'll need an AV receiver or a stereo amp.